Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. We have something really special for all the Conan the Barbarian fans out there today. Conan the Barbarian, created by Robert E. Howard, features characters in a world of swords and sorcery. The character we will discuss in today's video also belongs to the world of magic. We're going to take a look at an iconic character who's Conan's lifelong opponent. Sit back and enjoy as we get into a video on the origins of Thoth Amon, the serpent-worshipping sorcerer of Conan's lore. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin. Who is Thoth Amon? Thoth Amon is a Stygian wizard and has made many appearances in the series. Thoth Amon was only made into a prominent antagonist of Conan in the later issues. When he was first introduced, he never even met Conan face to face. Initially, Conan and Thoth Amon cross each other's paths purely by chance. Even though it was unintentional, Conan also did Thoth Amon a favor by getting rid of a rival priest of Set in Stygia, who was challenging Thoth Amon's power. He's also referred to as Thoth Amon of the Ring. Thoth was born into poverty. He became an acolyte of Ibis by killing Amon and taking his place. Amon was a boy who gained a place by warning the priest about an attempt on his life. Thoth enters the acolyte and gains a lot of knowledge. However, his lust for power made him seek forbidden knowledge. He finds the serpent ring of Set, and it revives him when he almost dies because of a test by the serpent god Set. Without the ring of Set, he's not capable of having enough power even to strike down someone standing right at his side. Robert E. Howard's version of Thoth Amon. Robert E. Howard is an American writer who has written a very diverse range of genres, his most popular being the sword and sorcery subgenre. He's even regarded as the father of this subgenre. Howard created the iconic character Conan the Barbarian. When he was on a trip around Texas, the man conceived Cimmeria, a fantasy land that was home to the fearsome barbarians. It was also here that he came up with Conan. He had already used the name for another story, but there were no major links between these two characters. He further developed this idea and came up with the Hyborian Age, the time when these stories were set. He recycled an old story that he had never published called By This Axe I Rule, and made it into his first Conan story, which he named The Phoenix on the Sword. It's also in this story that Thoth Amon makes his appearance. The Phoenix on the Sword. This novelette was first published in Weird Tales. It starts with Thoth Amon meeting an outlaw, Ascalante, to make plans to overthrow Conan. Ascalante has been planning for a coup against Conan for months, and he has also been using the Rebel Four to do so by making them cause unrest in the city. Dion is supposed to lead them after the coup, but Ascalante has other plans, and he wants power for himself. Thoth Amon doesn't want to be part of these plans, and he resents Ascalante, but he has no other choice. He's being blackmailed into doing things for him as his power is diminished without his ring. Ascalante saddles Thoth Amon with the job of keeping an eye on Dion to make sure he doesn't spoil things. Thoth Amon tells Dion how he was the favorite sorcerer of King Thespon in the royal courts of Stygia. He tells him of his ring and how other sorcerers feared him because his ring could summon other beings from outside. But his powers went down after the ring was stolen by a thief. He flees Stygia under the disguise of a camel driver, fearing the wrath of other magicians, and gets captured by Ascalante. He's only left alive because he reveals who he is. This is how Ascalante keeps him captive by blackmailing him about his identity. Dion, who hasn't been paying attention to all this, suddenly snaps out of it after he hears the word ring. He remembers a ring he got from a thief for good fortune. He looks for it and gives it to Thoth Amon, who realizes that it is his ring. He immediately ends up killing Dion, and now that he has his powers back, he summons a creature to kill Ascalante. The beast succeeds, and while it's tearing him apart, Conan intervenes, causing it to shift focus. However, Conan eventually succeeds in killing the beast. Incidentally, Ascalante had been attacking Conan when Thoth Amon decided to get his revenge. The Hour of the Dragon. In The Hour of the Dragon, Thoth Amon does not make an appearance, but he is mentioned. The book follows Conan on his quest to retrieve the heart of Ahriman, so he can defeat the wizard Zaitotun. Conan has been seeking a galley, and he's informed that what he seeks carries a priest named Thothmes on it, who was put on the Stygian port Kemi. Thothmes is planning to defeat Thoth Amon. It tells us that Thoth Amon is someone who's seen as a figure of both terror and myth. Only someone who possessed the power of the Black Ring had the power of the Black Hand, which killed anyone it touched and was capable of killing him. Thothmes is such a person. Conan finally finds him and the heart of Ahriman at an altar. 4 other men clad in black robes enter in and demand the heart. A fight ensues, in which all the priests and the black-robed men die, including Thothmes. This is how Conan inadvertently kills one of Thoth Amon's biggest enemies. The God in the Bowl. Thoth Amon is mentioned again in a story that is set in Conan's youth, The God in the Bowl. Here too, he's not trying to go after Conan. He's going after Calanthus of Hanumar, who's the priest of Ibis. These two don't even meet in any of Robert E. Howard's stories. This story starts with the murder of Publico, for which Conan is initially thought to be responsible. After further investigation, the team realizes that Publico was interested in examining a sarcophagus with a copper bowl attached. He was storing this for Calanthus, but Publico became obsessed with it and imagined it had a jeweled diadem of ancient Stygian kings. When these people looked into the object, they find that the sarcophagus is empty and that the bowl has been chiseled off. They also notice the symbol of Set carved on the lid. Upon further examination, they find the mark of Thoth Amon on it. They come to the conclusion that he has sent something to kill his enemy, and the creature is now free in the museum. In the end, Conan ends up defeating the creature. The Haunter of the Ring. There's also a brief mention of Thoth Amon in The Haunter of the Ring. This is a short story by Howard, where a character named Joseph Rolock gifts a ring to a woman. Now, the woman had recently rejected Joseph, so out of hatred he gives her a possessed ring, which makes her try to kill her husband. This ring makes her dream of a horrible, faceless black thing. This ring is revealed to be Thoth Amon's ring, which has the power to summon a very ferocious demon. Thoth Amon himself does not make any appearances in the story, but his ring does, and he's mentioned because of it. In all of Robert E. Howard's tales of Conan the Barbarian, Thoth Amon is never directly shown as his rival. In fact, the two never even face off against each other. Thoth Amon is someone we come across in Conan's stories in very unexpected ways. The two have somehow helped each other take down each other's enemies, even though it was not intentional, and they've never met. Conan has fought Thoth Amon's monsters and has also successfully killed them, even though they were not intended to go after him. Thoth Amon in later versions. After Howard's death, other writers continue the story of Conan the Barbarian. The copyright for this went through many hands. Eventually, the management of this fiction line came to L. Sprague de Camp, who started with a series of collecting all of Howard's stories. New stories were also released. The original stories were sometimes published with new edits. The stories were also sometimes a mix of the stories already written by Howard, but just with a different setting and different characters. Some were also developed from Howard's unfinished ones. Let us now take a look at a few which feature Thoth Amon, starting with Conan the Buccaneer. This novel was written by Lynn Carter and L. Sprague de Camp, and published in 1971. The story follows Conan, who is now in his late 30s. He is the captain of the Wastrel, and has now become entangled with the politics of Zingara. He's on a quest for a treasure on the Nameless Isle. Princess Chabela, our Stygian sorcerer, and the privateer Zorono are also mixed up in this quest for treasure. Thoth Amon is first mentioned at the end of Chapter 1, when a character named Menkara goes to recruit him. He finally makes an appearance in Chapter 8, when Menkara gives him the Book of Skelos. He's impressed by this, but later on, he learns that the book was taken from an altar on the Nameless Island. It's also beneath this altar where the treasure lies, the Cobra Crown. He does not appear again until Chapter 12. Here, he's searching for clues about where the crown is, and he comes to know that Conan is on the Black Coast. He has the ability to look for people in the astral plane. He appears again in Chapter 14, and here we see how powerful he is. With just a casual flick of his hand, he makes Chabela unconscious. He also takes the crown and then disappears. Chapter 19 is titled King Thoth Amon. He makes an appearance with the crown on his head, performing sorcery. The king gives up his throne and his daughter, whom he declares to marry him. He also places his own crown on Thoth Amon's head. Vilagro soon takes the crown from him, which keeps him at bay, but does not completely get rid of him, as Vilagro is inexperienced. Conan soon appears and yells about how Thoth Amon has ensnared the king. He's distracted by this, and Vilagro attacks him. Chabela encourages the people to follow Conan's lead, and they go after Thoth Amon. He uses his magic to send a beam of light, causing the Cobra Crown's magic to explode. He's weakened by this, and he hides from the battle. He's able to make himself invisible and go to the crown, but the crown has been rendered useless. But he still manages to use his ring to animate a tapestry and then escape during the chaos he caused. The Black Stranger. The Black Stranger was found and written into a different story, The Treasure of Tranquois, by L. Sprague de Camp, who rewrote it. Initially written by Howard, it was never published. In the original version written by Howard, Thoth Amon does not make an appearance, but when it was rewritten, de Camp included this character. He's introduced as a character who double-crosses Valenso in the past. However, even in this, he's not Conan's enemy. He's always after some other character. In this, Thoth Amon ends up releasing a demon as usual, and Conan slays the demon. Conan of Aquilonia. Conan of Aquilonia is a collection of 4 short stories that are linked, all written by L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter. It's here that Thoth Amon is established as Conan's nemesis. The first story is called The Witch of the Mists. In this, Conan's son, Prince Khan, is kidnapped. When Conan frees him in the end, he discovers it is Thoth Amon, his archenemy, who's responsible for this. In the second story, The Witch of the Mists, Conan is going after Thoth Amon with his son. During their initial fight, Thoth Amon and his sorcerers seem to be too powerful for him to handle. but Conan ends up making the fight even by bringing the heart of Ahriman with him. Thoth Amon still proves to be a challenge as he releases a hyena of chaos. Unfortunately, the hyena cannot differentiate who the enemies are, and it ends up destroying Stygia's own army. This forces Thoth Amon to flee and take refuge with the king of Zimbabwe, as his sanctum is now in ruins. In the third story, Red Moon of Zimbabwe, Conan is pursuing him. Thoth Amon has taken refuge with Ninaunir, the king's twin brother, who has usurped his throne. Conan finds himself in a dungeon with the true king. Khan, however, ends up saving them when he kills Ninaunir, and this causes Thoth Amon to flee again on a flying wyvern. In the final story, Shadows in the Skull, Thoth Amon has taken refuge in a colony of serpent men. Here, Thoth Amon is finally killed at the hands of Conan's son, Prince Khan. Thoth Amon in the Marvel Comics. Thoth Amon makes his first appearance in the Marvel Comics in Conan the Barbarian #7. The comics made use of L. Sprague de Camp's version of the character as Conan's long-term nemesis. Conan even gets a visionary glimpse of Thoth Amon in this issue. When he looks at the bowl that releases the creature he killed, he sees the frightened face of him staring back. He was created by artist Barry Windsor Smith and writer Roy Thomas. He's basically the archetypal evil sorcerer in this universe. Over the years, he went from being just an antagonist into a character with his own complexities and backstory. They even ran a short story in Age of Conan, Valeria, called The Fall of Thoth Amon, which shows how he lost his ring and became a slave for Ascalante. Conan and the Grim Grey God. Conan and the Grim Grey God was written by Sean A. Moore. Moore gives the character a lot more to do in this novel. He's searching for the Grim Grey God and more books of power. His ring is referred to as the Black Ring in his novel instead of the Serpent Ring. Thoth Amon gives his ring as a loan to a necromancer, and it shows that he's powerful even without it. This is usually not the case. There's one condition. He only gives it out on loan for a fortnight, and if it is not returned to him by then, a candle created by him will kill the necromancer. Thoth Amon is trying to steal the statue of the Grim Grey God with a few other allies, believing that it will give them the power to bring back their reign of darkness over the world. He cares more about the religion of Set and getting rid of other religions in this novel than he cares about gaining power for himself. At the end of the novel, he escapes as usual by teleporting away. Dark Horse Comics. The Dark Horse comics depict Thoth Amon in a different way. He has an Egyptian headdress in these. In Conan the Book of Thoth, we get the origin story. He's created by Lin Wayne, Kurt Busiek, and artist Kelly Jones. We're introduced to Thoth, who's a beggar on the streets. He has visions of the future where all the rich and privileged are scared of him because of his powers. We see how he rises from being a street rat into a dreaded sorcerer. Throughout these stories, he's portrayed as an evil character. He does anything and everything he can to gain power and rise up. Appearance, powers, and abilities of Thoth Amon. Now that we've looked at Thoth Amon's story arcs, let us take a look at what his powers are and what he looks like. Thoth Amon is someone who's very tall and has a menacing stature. He dresses up in robes and often wears a turban. His skin shows signs of both his advanced age and the ravages of his magic. It's wrinkled and leathery. His inhuman green eyes seem to look like emeralds. They burn from within. In Marvel Comics, he's designed by Barry Windsor Smith, and he has a ram horn ornamental headdress. He has a more traditional Stygian appearance in the Dark Horse comic series. He's an extremely powerful sorcerer who draws most of his power from the Ring of Set. He doesn't have much of his own without it, as we've already seen. As a sorcerer, he has a variety of spells and rituals that he can use against people. He can command different beasts, and especially snakes. He has the ability to corrupt and infest the bodies of those that he has infected with venom. When he does so, the people spawn horrible monsters from their bodies before they die. He can communicate with people from a distance by using his powers to possess swarms of insects. He's also great at setting up schemes to take down his enemies. He really likes to use a person's own allies against him by corrupting them. He can summon horrible beasts from his ring. He's very cunning, even politically. He has a lot of power in Stygia because of this. Even though he's not immortal, he has lived a very long life. Marvelous verdict. Well, with that, guys, we've come to the end of yet another Marvelous video. In this video, we followed the character of Thoth Amon and his many schemes that involve Conan. What are your thoughts on the evolution of this character? From being someone who has never even met Conan, Thoth Amon has turned out to become one of his greatest lifelong adversaries. Which story arc of his are you all fond of? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.